Thank you, Susan, and thanks for the invitation. And I'm happy to do it. It keeps me out of trouble. So welcome everybody, and thank you for being here. I know that you're very, very busy, and so I'm going to do my very best to just go up till 12:30. The object of today, of course, I don't know your experience with yoga. Some of you might have a regular practice. Some of you may have done yoga before, but you don't practice regularly. And perhaps if some of you have not practiced yoga and are just curious what it's all about. So this session is really geared toward showing you some of the things that you would probably be taught in a regular yoga class, like if you went to a gym or a yoga studio, or if you were doing a yoga class online. And so what I'd like to do is, in the short time period that we have, is show you some of the things that, some of the movements, some of the postures, or asanas, which is the Sanskrit word for basically postures, and show you some of the asanas or postures that you would learn or be taught in a yoga class. And I would like to just address some of the common errors, some of the mispositioning, I'll use that word if I can, and how you can correct them. Because obviously, you know, the point in taking an exercise class is to strengthen your body, stretch some muscles, not to become injured. And unfortunately, with yoga or any other exercise program, if you're not doing things correctly, you do risk injury. So I'm hoping to show just a few things that can help you to reduce that chance of injury. I taught the class the 8 movements for improving posture and well-being. And so there are a few stretches in there that you can also add into a regular yoga practice. And I'm just going to quickly go over the 3 things that I mentioned at the beginning of that class that are really important for yoga or any other exercise program. One is breathing. Everything should begin and start with your breathing, and yoga is no exception. It's really more important than even the positioning and the movements and the postures. So we don't have time to get into it today, but try to, if you're familiar with abdominal breathing, I encourage you to do it. Yoga has a typical breathing that's called ujjayi breathing, which is where you kind of create an ocean wave sound in the back of your throat. Again, we're not going to get into that today. The most important thing today is that you're breathing. So don't hold your breath. It also really is a good indicator of if you're working within your comfortability. So if you notice you're holding your breath, very often it's because you're doing something that's beyond what you're ready for, or you're just not bringing enough awareness to it. And it's not, it's just something to be aware of. So the breathing and the awareness of your breathing is very important. Secondly is being aware of what you're feeling throughout the session. So throughout each movement, throughout each posture, if you're holding a posture, really being in tune with what you're experiencing in the present moment, in this case on the yoga mat or wherever you're practicing. And the last thing is consistency. If you do 10 to 15 minutes of yoga several times a week, it's better than doing an hour-and-a-half session one day a week. So I just definitely recommend, writing things in your calendar, because I just find, for me personally, that helps me to be a little bit more disciplined. So with that said, I just let you know that when I say pay attention to your foundation, when you take a yoga class, any part of your body that's in contact with the surface beneath you, whether it be a wood floor, a yoga mat, a carpet, any part of your body that is touching that is considered your foundation. So when you're standing, your feet are your foundation. When you're on your hands and your knees are your foundation. So we're going to start off in what's called tabletop. So I'm going to start off on my hands and my knees. I'm hoping you'll be able to see me, and if I need to, I'll come closer to the camera. But so you're going to start off on your hands and knees, creating kind of a table form. So I've got my knees, my left knee is under my left hip, my right knee is under my right hip, and my left hand is under my left shoulder, my right hand under my right shoulder. So there's about shoulder width between my hands, hip width between my knees. One thing that you might notice is that you kind of sink. Maybe you drop down into your shoulders and your shoulders come up around your neck. Maybe your belly drops to the floor. And this creates kind of a weak starting point. So what I'm going to ask you to do is spread your fingers out wide. Make sure that you're not just pressing on the outside or the inside of your hands, but ideally distributing the weight equally between the two sides, as well as pressing your fingertips into the mat. Already, by doing that action there, you're going to take some of the pressure off your wrist, and you're going to strengthen your arms and your foundation so that you're not putting everything into the shoulders as well. Now with the hips, you just have your hips, you can widen your knees if that feels more comfortable to you, but in general, it's about hip width apart. So the other thing you're going to avoid is starting like this with the backdrop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my navel up towards my spine, and already I get a little bit of a flatter back. I'm going to press firmly into my hands, and that's going to lift me up into this long tabletop. So this is known as tabletop. I'm going to, again, press into the fingertips, press into the inside and the outside of the hands, draw my shoulders back away from my ears, and now I'm just going to tune in with my breathing. So I'm going to take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And I'm going to continue that breathing, and I'm going to link it with the movement of what's called cat-cow. So you start with the cow movement, you inhale, you lift your tailbone up, you lift your chest up, and then when you exhale, you pull your navel up towards your spine, let your chin drop down, maybe your chin even touches your chest. You round your back like a cat, and you continue. So I'm going to start the inhalation and follow with the movement. I'm drawing my shoulders back from my ears. I exhale. I'm rounding my back as if I want to touch the ceiling with my vertebra and draw the belly button towards the spine. So just to warm up, I'm going to do about 5 of these. And I'm going to exhale. This is a great action to do any time of the day because it's going to help you just get some movement in your spine. If you sit a lot, if you're stationary, your spine's going to get stiff. All the muscles along your spine might get stiff. And just this movement can kind of free up those muscles. I'm going to do one more. And then I'm going to return back to neutral spine. So back to tabletop. So just a word on those of you with kind of wrists that are sensitive. If you have any carpal tunnel issues, you might find that this becomes uncomfortable after a while. Don't ever hesitate to take your hand up, turn it under, and now the back of my hand is on the floor. My thumb is towards the midline of my body. And I'm just going to draw my shoulder back, and I'm going to push my forearm forward. So I'm not pushing a lot of weight down into the floor. Instead, I'm taking the shoulder back, and I'm just kind of gently guiding the forearm forward. And that's just going to help stretch out this area of your wrist. Of course, you can always sit back and roll your wrist too. So if you're feeling any discomfort in your wrist, feel free to do that. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my left leg, and I'm going to inhale, and I'm going to bring it back. So this requires a bit of abdominal strength. And maybe if I lift my leg up, I'm going to notice that I'm going to fall to one side or the other. If you lift up your left leg, you might notice you put all your weight to the right. Try to keep as much weight on both hands as possible. So again, try to just keep the center line of your body in line with the center line of your mat. You don't want to be leaning over to one side. The other thing is we'll tend to turn the foot out, and we'll be using a lot of glute strength instead of using the inner leg muscles. So what I'd like you to do is, in this position, turn your toes downward. So now my 5 toes on my left foot are facing downward. So you don't have to lift the leg real high, it's just about right there. And now if you're up for it, again, make sure you're breathing. I'm gonna lift my right arm up. Now this gets tricky. If you don't have a lot of strength in your shoulders, you might notice you're collapsing into your shoulders, and you don't want that. So it's much better to keep both hands on the floor in that case. If you feel like you've got it in you, then keep that long left leg. Don't lift the head way up. Don't drop the head way down. Think about tailbone to top of the head as a straight line. And then inhale and bring your right arm up. And you might want to hold that for maybe 3 breath cycles. So you're inhaling and exhaling. And if you find that it's too much for your shoulder, just pop your hand down or put your knee back down on the floor. As you exhale, bring your right hand to the floor and bring your right knee to the floor. Now, just for a moment, we're going to take child's pose. So I'm going to separate my knees, and I'm going to bring my big toes together, and I'm just going to push my hips back like that. Now, if you find that this is just not comfortable for you, grab something. I have 2 beach towels wrapped inside, bring it a little closer. It's like a makeshift bolster. And I'm going to put that, I'm going to separate my knees, and I'm going to rest that back here. And so if you find that putting your hips back on your heels is not possible, maybe pop something under there, and then all of a sudden this becomes more accessible. So you can always take a couple blankets or a few towels, and then I'm going to come back up. Nice and gentle. I'm going to take that out and put it to the side. And now we're going to do the other side. So again, align your hands underneath your shoulders, your knees underneath your hips. Elongate your spine, top of the head towards the front of the room, tailbone towards the back. Just gently draw your navel to up towards your spine. And when you inhale, straighten your right leg. And again, notice where your weight goes in your hands. Are you falling onto the left arm or left hand? Try to align the center of your body with the center of your mat. If you've got it in you, go ahead and elongate that left arm. Turn your toes of your right foot down. So try not to make it all come from the glutes, but instead use a little bit of that inner leg muscle by turning your toes down towards the floor. And breathe. Notice where your mind goes. That's another reason why the breath is so important. It'll bring you back to what you're doing. And when you exhale, place the hand down and the knee down. Let's just go ahead and move through cat-cow as we did before, just 3 times. So we're going to inhale, we're going to open up. We're going to exhale, round the spine, chin towards your chest, tailbone towards the floor. Move at your own pace, noticing different sensations. Maybe you notice there's an area of your back that's a little bit less resistant to movement than another part. You don't have to change anything, but it's all about being present and just noticing what you are experiencing in your body. And then come back to a neutral spine. So we're going to move on to, I'd like to just get to the, we're going to do a sun salutation, which is something you'll do in almost every yoga class, any physical yoga class. So one of the things that's really important is how you position your shoulders. You always want to take care of your shoulders, especially when you're putting weight on your hands. If you're familiar with some positions, I'm sure you'd be familiar with downward facing dog. So I'm going to show that, and I'm going to explain how easily it is to do it the wrong way and to increase your likelihood of injury and how you can correct that. So I'm going to go ahead and come back to my hands and knees. I'm going to spread my fingers apart, and again, I'm really going to try and press down into my 10 fingertips. And now what I'm going to do is, maybe I wiggle my head a little bit, get some movement. I'm going to inhale, and I'm going to lift my knees off the floor. So if you're doing this with me, just for a moment, lift your knees up and just gently push your hands forward to kind of push your weight back towards your feet. Now, very gently, I am going to go ahead and kind of straighten my legs, but not completely. If you have a regular practice, you can. But I'm trying to put my sit bones up towards the ceiling. So I'm not trying to straighten my legs, because here's what happens when people straighten their legs, if it's possible. They tuck their tailbone under like that, and then they strain their low back. It's better to keep your knees bent and to really push your hips up towards the ceiling than it is to have your legs straight, but kind of doing something damaging for your low back. So 2 things when you're doing downward facing dog. Bend your knees and be generous with that bend. So if you're feeling like, oh yeah, okay, well that's not really possible for me anyhow, that's okay. Bend your knees, and you can always practice straightening one leg, bend the leg, maybe straighten the other. Keep your head relaxed, and then bending the other leg, and maybe you alternate. Maybe you don't get one leg straight. Maybe your heel doesn't touch the floor. It's completely fine. You don't have to do that. Now, I'm going to come back down to the floor, and I'm going to explain something else. I'm going to come to the camera. So with downward facing dog, what we tend to do is we tend to roll our shoulders in. So once we lift up, into a position. You can see this is a terrible position for my neck and my shoulders. And if you're doing your downward dog and you're doing this position, not only are you know, right now I'm holding this up, but I don't have any resistance. So I have no weight on me and it's already uncomfortable. When you put your hands on the floor and you lift your body weight up, if you're doing downward dog with this position like this, then you're doing it with not a very comfortable position already, plus you're adding the weight of your body. So when you do downward facing dog, again, press your hands evenly into the floor and your 10 fingers and see if you can turn your shoulders down and away. So I'm going to show you with my shoulder blades, these bones here. So instead of doing this, where the shoulder blade comes out and up, it's kind of like a chicken bone, like a chicken wing bone. You want to actually try and get your shoulder blade down towards the midline of your body and away from your ears. So when you're doing it without your weight on it, it's much easier. But practicing it when you're putting your weight and you're going into downward facing dog is very important. So we're going to do that. Anytime you need to, just roll your shoulders out. Let's go ahead and come to tabletop position. Hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath your hips. Elongate your spine. Stay in tune with your breath. So because I'm talking, I'm not doing a regular breathing as I would if I weren't talking, but try as you're doing the movements or when you do practice it, try to really remain linked linked in with your breath. So we're going to go ahead and turn the toes under, take the belly button, pull it up towards your spine, and just gently lift the knees up. Now, draw your shoulders back away from your ears and turn the inside creases of your elbows slightly forward. So all of a sudden you might feel your triceps firing and say, whoa, okay, which is a good thing. So I'm going to go ahead and inhale and I'm going to press my hips up. My goal is not to straighten my legs, but instead to push my sit bones or my tailbone up towards the ceiling. Release your head completely. You can shake it, say yes, say no. And then maybe I'll alternate inhaling, straightening one leg, exhale, and do the other. Now again, watch what your shoulders are doing. Really practice moving your shoulder blades down your spine. So you've got some space here between your ears and your shoulders. So take a couple breaths here if you're there. And when you're ready to come out of this, so if you've got your legs straight and you've got a regular practice, that's fine. But it's really way more important to get the sit bones, the bones at the base of your pelvis, up towards the sky than it is to have your legs straight. Now, when you're ready, we're going to take a deep breath in. We're going to bend the knees. We're going to look towards our hands, maybe even just beyond the hands. And we're going to gently walk towards the top of the mat. Now, this may be accessible for some of you, and it may not. If you are not able to put your hands on the mat, put them on your shins or even put them on your thighs. You can even put your elbows on your thighs if that's more comfortable. So, just to quick explain, with a forward fold, so if you're used to taking a yoga class, you know this position a lot. A forward fold, if you put your hands on the ground, that's great. And if you've got lots of flexibility back here and in your low back, that's great. If you don't, here's what you're going to experience. My back goes from being flat to rounding, and this is really, 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 really hard on your back. So I see people doing forward folds with their hands like this, and it's very stressful for your back. Much better to put your hands on your shins or on your thighs and flatten your back out. So again, you're kind of drawing the sit bones, these two bones at the base of your pelvis, towards the wall behind you. This position is way better than doing this position. So find the movement that's most comfortable for you, and I'll just show you, if you're in a yoga class, if you see blocks available, they're like arm extenders. So you can put the blocks in, they have 3 heights. So you can always kind of play around with what works best. If you don't have blocks, not a big deal. Just hands on the shins or hands on the thighs. I'm going to inhale and I'm going to lengthen my spine, lift my chest, look forward. And then I'm going to exhale and I'm just going to kind of release that down. It feels kind of good. Maybe you let your torso rest on your legs for a moment. Maybe your head hangs down. And then we're going to inhale. Draw your belly button, your navel towards your spine, and we're going to roll all the way up. So you're inhaling and you're coming all the way up to standing. So right now, your foundation is your feet. And I'm going to turn towards you. Right now, when you start in a posture, in a yoga posture, or before you do what's called a sun salutation, you want to just really connect and see where you're putting your weight in your feet. If you're rolling out really heavy on the outside of your feet, just see if you can just make a little bit more contact with the inside of your feet. If your knees tend to buckle and come in, see if maybe you can just press a little bit more firmly into the outside of your feet and maybe use a little bit more of the outside of your legs to reinforce your legs and to get a little bit more space in between. So you're at the top of your mat, we'll call it, and this is mountain pose. So as with the class that I did last week, ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips. So you really want to avoid starting like this. Inhale, get some length in your spine, maybe open up your palms to the area in front of you. And we're going to inhale, we're going to bring our arms up. So we inhale, bring arms up. When you exhale, you don't have to fold and keep your torso totally straight or your legs totally straight. You can bend your knees. And again, return to the position we did before. So you fold forward. Maybe you'd rather have your hands on your shins or on your thighs. Inhale, lift halfway up. Shoulders move back away from your ears. And exhale and gently drop forward. Now, inhale, again, look forward. Now we're going to step the right foot back. So you're going to step your right foot towards the back of the mat. Maybe you take 5 or 10 steps to get there. Maybe you lift up your leg and you bring it back. Doesn't really matter. But now you're in this lunge action. So what you might see a lot in class happening is people doing this. And now they're in this lunge and their knees way past their toes. That's a lot of stress on the knee joint. So I'm going to put my hands down and I'm just going to go ahead. Well, maybe I'll lift up my ankle and bring it forward. There we go. So your knee should ideally be over your ankle, okay? And then if that's not comfortable for you, for women with larger breasts, maybe you want to bring your hands in towards the inside of your leg. This right here, so I'm pressing, this back leg is straight, and I'm pressing firmly into the 5 toes. So this is like a high lunge without lifting my arms up. I'm going to go ahead and inhale. I'm going to really make this leg, this right leg on my side, very, very strong. And then when I exhale, I'm going to go ahead and place the knee on the floor. Now, if you find that your knee doesn't feel good, and again, this is very handy if you're in a class. If this is too much pressure on your knee, fold your yoga mat halfway in, and that just doubled the thickness of your mat. So now I'm going to go ahead and inhale. I'm going to lift up just a little bit. Maybe stay on the fingertips. Again, these blocks come in very, very handy, but you don't have to have them. But if you're in a class and they have them, that's what they're for. And then I'm going to come back forward, and I'm going to go ahead and lift up that knee. Now, a little tricky thing here is I want to step this foot back and do the other side. So you can do it with the knee down and kind of lift up your hips like that and take your knees back like that and then step forward. Or you can lift up like that. I'm going to put my weight into both hands evenly. I'm going to straighten that leg and really get it strong, and then I'm going to bring it back like this. So now you either have your knees on the floor and you step up with the other side, or you come from here. I'm going to walk my right hand in, and I'm just going to do that, or you can even do it with a bunch of steps lifting up your ankle. That's fine. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side. See how my right knee is above my ankle? You really want to be conscientious of that angle, not letting your knee go past the toe. So take a breath here. Notice what you're feeling. Maybe you're feeling that stretch through the front of your left hip. And we're going to go ahead, exhale, and bring your left knee down. So again, if your knees don't like having the sensation of something hard like a floor underneath them, fold your mat in, and you've just doubled the thickness of the mat. And that can take a lot of the pressure off the knee. So I'm lifting the chest up. I'm not bringing my shoulders towards my neck. I'm taking the shoulders back. I'm getting a little bit of length here. Some people might be comfortable coming up with their hands on the thigh. That's going to create a very intense stretch in the front of the hip. If you're comfortable with that, definitely don't hesitate. But otherwise, find something that feels comfortable for you. What is your body telling you? And now I'm going to unfold the mat, and I'm just going to go ahead and take this knee, bend it, and step my right foot back. So now I'm back to my tabletop position. Hands are underneath your shoulders, knees are underneath your hips. I'm just going to go ahead and do maybe 3 cat-cows. So I'm going to inhale, tailbone comes up, shoulders move away from the ears, and exhale, round the spine. Inhale, come up. Exhale, round the spine. Again, go very slowly, always paying attention to what your body is registering. What do you feel? So we're going to sit back on the heels for a second, come back to neutral. Sit back on your heels if that's comfortable, just for a moment, making sure. I know we've got 5 minutes. So we're going to come up to standing because there's one position that I really want to go over that's very common in yoga classes. So go ahead and come up to standing, however is comfortable for you, just always being conscientious of your movements and how that works for your body. So we're going to do Warrior 2. The technical name or the Sanskrit name is Virabhadrasana, but that's less important. It's Warrior 2. I'm going to go ahead and step my left foot forward, and I really want to keep my knee aligned over the center of my foot and the knee over the ankle. So I'm going to step back like this, and I'm going to turn my right foot in. So I'm not sure if you can see that, but my left foot is facing completely forward, and my right foot is facing out on a 45-degree angle. So it's slightly turned out. Now, a lot of the times you're going to notice your front knee wants to fall inward or maybe outward, more commonly inward. Try to keep your knee aligned over the ankle, and if you were drawing an arrow through the knee towards the front, it would kind of cut your foot into 2 equal halves. This back foot, it's very easy to let the knee kind of collapse and to put all your weight on the arch of your right foot. I want you to press the outside of your foot down just a little bit more firmly and use a little bit more of that strength in that right side of the leg, or the inside of the leg, excuse me. So now I'm kind of opening up. I'm going to turn around so you can see a little bit. I can explain better. So Warrior 2 basically looks like this. But your version might look a little bit more like that, and that's fine. What you don't want to do is have the knee past the toe and your back knee like that. So very, very important to just be aware of your foundation. Foundation is the part in contact with the floor. You really want to be able to feel like, okay, my foundation is strong. I have good weight on my left foot, good weight on my right foot, and now I can distribute evenly the energy that's coming up through the leg. So you're not collapsing the knees in like that, you know, especially this back leg. I'm going to push a little bit more on this leg. And if I don't feel like this is the right movement for me, I'm going to take my leg and straighten it just a little bit. So your knee on the left side is facing forward. You're opening up, breathing. And just for time's sake, we're going to straighten that left leg, take the hands to the hips, and now we're going to turn the left foot in, and we're going to turn the right foot out, so that now the right foot is facing forward and the left foot, so you might be facing the other direction, but your right foot is in front, all 5 toes facing forward. Your left foot is on a 45-degree angle. Just notice what's happening in your right knee. See if you can put your knee over the ankle. If it's a little bit less, that's fine. If it's like this, that's not fine. So like that, and then just press a little bit more firmly in that back foot so that you're not collapsing the knee in. So I'm going to press the outside of the left foot firmly down, and then I'm just going to imagine like if somebody came along and just gently pressed this leg up. That's the strong foundation you're looking for in this Warrior 2. You bring your arms out, you drop your shoulders down, and right now I'm just letting my gaze, so I'm just like kind of looking beyond my middle finger of my right hand. If my leg gets tired, I can always straighten the leg. And then to come out of it, I'm going to go ahead and straighten the right leg, take the hands to the hips, turn my toes forward. Some people like to jump, so you can jump your feet together, but just to keep things gentle today, we'll just go ahead and heel toe it in. So when they say heel toe your feet together, that's what you're doing. Heel toe, heel toe. So just to recap, so that you guys can finish on time, always be aware of your shoulders. Never like this. Draw the shoulders away from your ears, navel towards the spine. Think about lengthening your spine, using the foundation to take some of that weight off of the joints of the body, especially before you go up into a position where your weight is being held by your hands and or feet. So we'll leave it at that. I know time goes so quickly. Thank you so much. If you have questions, I'm very open to answering them either now or even if, you know, Susan sends me an email or if you send me an email, I'm really receptive to that. So thank you so much. I hope it was helpful and I hope you have a wonderful week.